Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have David here. David, you're the chairman and CEO of SOBRsafe, which is a pretty interesting piece of technology you guys have developed to, basically bring this, real-time alcohol detection to the masses and to save a lot of lives with that. And you guys have a whole system you've developed, device that enables this to really happen here. And it's been, really beneficial to people to have this ability to understand where they're at, what their alcohol level is right away. You're a serial entrepreneur and builder. You've been building for a long time in a lot of different areas. I'm just excited to have you here and to get into your story and what you're up to.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Ben. I think what I've learned, though, we talk with your viewers and we talk about alcohol detection. I mean, that's the kind of the source of the technology. But what we've learned over time is what we're doing is we're providing software and hardware behavioral tools to improve accountability. Because it's kind of the negative side. We're detecting you, you're caught, but we're providing this toolkit because why you're in trouble because of your behavior and many other things. So we like to, right now, we're really changing our mindset and we're helping change behavior, not trying to catch you if you're doing something wrong. That makes
Yeah,
some sense.
no, it definitely does. So can you talk a bit about like how your interest in just business in general happened? Because this is something you spent so much of your life in, of just building companies, being a part of technology, and what made you interested in tech and entrepreneurship, tech and business?
Yeah, well, I mean, always, I mean, for me growing up, whatever was the hardest thing to do, like make a AAA baseball team or be the best at this. I mean, I would always think that anything would be possible. And in order to do it, I have to work harder. So how I got in the whole how this whole thing started is I ended up with a full scholarship, athletic scholarship to Michigan State uh, for ice hockey. And then before that, I was on the first world team. I was all, I mean, I had a tremendous youth hockey experience. It didn't translate to pro, which my father never forgave me for many years. But anyway, when I got out of school, my degree was in telecommunications. At that time, it was TV, radio, cable, net, all that was just starting to happen in 1980, 81. So when you walk out of college with a telecom degree, and telecoms just started having the phone companies, AT, all that stuff was changing. There was huge opportunity, even though there wasn't a direct correlation. That was the major. So I got my first job. I got in customer service for a company that was in the alternative long distance business, competing against AT&T. At that time, there were probably 25. In the early 90s, there were probably 550. So there was nothing but opportunity. When the economy was languishing, the auto industry was dying in the late 70s and early 80s, telecoms exploding in most major areas, but you had to be in a certain group and have a certain background to be able to do that. So I was just lucky. And then I ended up working for a couple of years in that space, and I ended up starting a company with a guy that was 20 years older than me, that was super smart when I was 25 years old. And we were going into audit in a company's telecom bills, compare them against other alternatives to save them money. That's where I started the company. Made it like a year. We ran out of money. I learned a ton. I learned a hell of a lot from there. And then I just kind of started on my journey and, got the biggest deal that we did was building a company when fiber optics first came out in 1984, 85, 86. And we created a company in Michigan, and we were reselling fiber competitive to these companies that built the fiber to long distance companies. We made a huge run in like 9 years. We built the company from 0 to 60 million, and we sold it to the great Phil Anschutz here in Denver. And that was about 2 or 3 years before it became Quest. So I've been lucky in my career. I worked for Phil. I didn't report to him, but I did a number of deals with him back in the days when you were putting fiber on railroad tracks and putting it in the tunnels where the oil and gas. I was cutting deals as a young kid, 34, 35 years old, learning from guys like that. And then later on, Don Sturm, who was a legend in Denver. He was a former CEO and chairman of Peter Kiewit. I was a COO for Don. I mean, the experience I had from learning these brilliant guys of what not to do and how to think, it really was a benefit on my journey. So started at 25, done it, 5, 6, 7 times. Some of them were better than others. And just, I like to do different things. I don't want to do the same thing for the rest of my life. So I try to change every period of time. And I'm blessed for meeting all these people and being able to learn from them. So it's been a great run so far. We got to get this one across the line
Yeah,
next.
100%. Specifically with like sober safe, like was there some sort of personal experience that led to you caring so much about this problem? Because like sober tech is a very unique space, and what you developed is something that the industry hasn't seen yet. What made you care so much?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. So it wasn't as much having experience with alcohol or having somebody in my family, but I was at a transition point again when I wanted to make an adjustment in my career and do something differently. So I sought out a group, a small venture capital company called First Capital Ventures. I started to work and raise money for that, just doing something different. And I was raising money for this company when it was in its infancy. And I looked at the technology and I said, why would these guys want to be raising money or doing something to basically repeat what the breathalyzer can do? There's got to be a different way to do this. And so anyway, I started to get more involved in the company. And what I thought was, okay, it's great to raise money, build companies and sell them and make money, but I'm getting old. I need to make a mark. I want to do something different. What if I could help these millions of people that have these issues? And so we started to make adjustments to the product. And I brought one of my friends, longtime friends from Detroit, and we kind of built it from the ground up. We had some technology. The technology didn't end up working, but I
Huh.
wanted to make a difference socially. And just in terms of numbers, 30 million people today in this country are trying to figure out how they can manage and cope with alcohol across the globe, 800 million people have issues. So if I can help 2%, 1% of those people and make a difference, it would be great for my legacy. Then I can say I was responsible to help these families and these people in this area. So it was really just being older, more mature, changing my mindset on how I wanted to do the next thing versus another money deal. It just changed my thinking.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really important mission that needs to be thought about differently. So I definitely agree with you on that. How does like the technology even work? I mean, you've got touch-based alcohol detection. You've got like a whole system of how this is structured. Like how does it work? What goes into this technology?
Yeah. So you were talking earlier about, you know, determining how much alcohol you have in your system. It's not, it's preventative, whether you have it or not. So just give you a quick run through. So you have transdermal technology, which is a sensor. It's been around forever. What
Mhm.
it does is if you're drinking through the limbs of your body, through your perspiration and humidity, you would excrete ethanol alcohol. So the sensor is conditioned to look for ethanol alcohol, and there's IP around it. There's other sensitivity, environmental factors. So it's screening out when you go to a gas station, you pump gas, it would blow the sensor. So all that work was done early on to figure out how the environmental factors wouldn't create false positives. So you got that sensor, got tons of IP behind it to determine when and how you'll make those decisions because you've got human physiology. If a person 6'6", 300 pounds has 3 beers, and a woman 5 foot tall, 90 pounds has 3 beers, it's a totally different outcome, different read because of physiology. So that's factored into it as well. So that then talks to if you're on the band, it talks to your phone. Phone talks to the cloud. Cloud talks to the dashboard. But it's just a SaaS-based product using the same technology that's in the stationary device called the SoberCheck and the SoberSure, which is the band. So it's sensor technology to IP to algorithm to cloud, via phone or through the internet and background. So we store data. It's de-identified. It's HIPAA compliant, but it's just it's a software hardware based SaaS product that provides real time insight, which some of the breathalyzers do. But basically, think about it this way: you walk into a facility, you blow 30 or 40 seconds, whatever it may be. Somebody, you show them your ID, they put your name in. There's a bunch of people sitting in the lobby going, "Geez, you remember when we got pulled over and I got my first DUI? God, this is the same stuff." Now you go in, very discreet. You touch the device 10 seconds or less. Biometric reads who you are. The alcohol detection tells you whether you have alcohol in your system or not. You're registered. You go sit down. It's just more humane, higher tech. There's no handwork done. There's no scribing done. So it's just a better. Hopefully, we're building the new standard for monitoring. Right.
So what made you want to take this public as well and kind of go that route?
Well, I didn't. It wasn't my choice. So, in
Uh-huh.
order to acquire the framework of the company, it was based in California. The original investors that owned the majority of the company, it already was a penny stock company. So
Mm,
they wanted to remain public so they could exercise in the future. And so what happens? I went from penny to OTC, and then through a series of positive and very lucky events, we're able to find a bank in New York that took us public in May of 22, and the third worst day in market history since 2008. We got our first 10 million bucks and got out of the gates. But it was the way the deal was done originally. I mean, going, if I was to do it again, I would have raised three times the money, and I would stay private until the product was ready, but didn't have that option. So it's
yeah.
not the first plane I built, while we're flying it, but it's a lot harder when you're public because we had issues with the stock and maintaining the dollar minimum. 2024 was a tremendous battle to stay alive, but we did
Mm.
it. So
It's good you did it. Yeah.
yeah, we did it.
Um, so just like you talked about the public, kind of the issues being public and stuff like that. Um, but when you think about like just the fundraising piece of it all, you mentioned the 10 million there. Like, how have you kind of been handling that piece of it since then? And just how are you guys as prepared financially? Because this seems to be something that requires a lot of investment to really get up and running.
Yeah, I think I want to say if you go from the private raises that we did early on to the public, I think we're over 35 million now that we've raised in the last 3 years. But let's talk. You talk about legends and leaders.
Yeah.
In order to lead with a technology company, you have to be able to have access to cash.
Mhm.
It's really tough if you're not public to have access to cash because you'll get private money, and private money will strip you of your ownership
Mm.
because they can. It's not a bad thing, it's just reality. So the great thing about being public is if you have a good partner that can raise funds, they're not going to be great terms, but you're going to be able to raise funds to get to realize your dream. So the issue that we had, the challenge we had, is that we never raised enough money for 20 to execute a 24-month a business plan. So we had to raise in tranches, and that kind of slows you down, and you lose things like digital marketing. You don't have the ability to go out and build the brand as well as you're building your product because you don't have the dollars. I mean, if you think about it, you need at least $1 million a year to grow your brand on digital, social. You have to do it, and you probably already know this. You have to touch a potential customer. You have to touch them 10, 11, 12 times before they buy something because they're inundated today. So the negative, when private's good because you can grow at your own pace. Tough to get money. Public's difficult because you can get beat up and obliterated, and you're raising money. It's tough. But we found we have a great bank that we work with, and we found kind of a happy medium. In our last raise, we raised 13 million when our market cap was less than $1 million. And
Mhm.
our stock, we did our second reverse. I don't know what our stock is doing today, but we're in a position now where we have about 14, 15 months worth of cash. Our stock's in a good place. Traction is occurring, adoption is occurring, sales are occurring. We're growing our users. So now we're in takeoff mode. But it took some time to get there because of all the things that I had mentioned. So it's just constantly a battle to figure out who the right partners are, the best deals that you can get based on who you are, not what you want. CFOs love great deals, but unless you're doing 20, 30 million in revenue and kicking off some EBITDA, those deals aren't available yet. So you got to be realistic to what's in the market.
Mm. How did you think about like marketing this, David? Like, who is the target demographic for this? I mean, because maybe some of the people that have these issues, or may not be the ones who want it. It may be the people around them. How did you kind of think about marketing?
Well, so that's another great story. So we started in 2022. We were doing tests with fleet companies like Amazon and their drivers and manufacturing warehousing. So when you come in, you check to get your keys, you go to work, you're sober, right? And if you're not, then whatever the company's policy is, that's how you would deal with that individual. So we did 3 or 4 or 5 pilots, went extremely well. We announced the pilots to the market. And when we got to the finish line, the companies, this was just after COVID, and there was also kind of skittishness in the market, and employees were tough to find, blah blah blah. And what happened was, if you were going to test employees, the employer was concerned it would violate their rights, and they would start to lose employees in those spaces. So we had a significant funnel, but we weren't closing business. The reason why, because these employers were unwilling to move forward. So we pivoted to where there was a market where they were testing individuals for alcohol, which is behavioral health. You have mental situation, you have a former DUI, you've come out of rehab. There's about 46,000 brick and mortar facilities in the US, and that's the market that we attacked because they already had testing involved, and ours was 1/3 the time. It was fully automated and allowed these companies to have more time, these employees, with their patients. So it's a significant. But when your stock is fluttering and you're trying to stay afloat on the NASDAQ and your sales guys are out, it kind of presents sometimes a difficult picture. So it took us a little longer than expected to get traction. But our spaces are full, our market spaces are behavioral health, family law,
Mhm.
which is your spouse and you are divorced, your spouse has a drinking problem, you want to leave the kids for the weekend, she's got to wear the band to make sure that she's not drinking. You have that on your phone to make sure your kids are safe. So that's the second market. And the third is just consumers looking for relief with alcohol. And based on our research, there's about 2.7 million consumers that are looking for some type of method to either slow down or quit drinking. So those three chunks, markets that we're in right now.
Mhm. And what does the roadmap look like currently? Like, what are the most immediate, things of action goals that you have right now, and like, what's the long term vision?
So I mean, so the immediate goals right now are brand building and generating new accounts and more users. And I've not talked to the market yet and give numbers yet, but
Mhm.
it's all about subscribers, building brand. And then once we do that, then we have the ability to expand outside the US. So you may or may not know this. We're in Australia and New Zealand selling the same product with a channel partner. We're testing in India. We're testing in Italy right now. So we're looking at potential international expansion, which is why I talked to you about the 800 million individuals affected. So through the rest of this year, it's building brand, signing customers, building subscriber base, and then expanding as we go based on potential outcomes from this testing. And again, also licensing and integration with other companies that we're talking to that may want to include our technology as part of their stack. But right now, it's all about subscribers.
Yeah. No, makes sense for sure. How do you think about like building the brand in terms of like what the brand stands for, marketing that effectively, while making it kind of cool and interesting, but also solving the problem? Because I think you kind of have to balance that here, of like getting people to use this, and making it something that they want to wear and they want to want to have on them, while also like communicating the importance of that too at the same time. How are you kind of thinking about that?
Yeah, have you spent any time on our website yet? Have you
Yeah.
looked at anything? Yeah, so with in the behavioral health space, what we're doing is we're building the brand by getting testimonials and short videos from the individuals that are managing these facilities.
Hmm.
And if you look at it, I'm going to guess 80+% of these individuals have alcohol use disorder or drug disorder. That's why they're in it, to save other people and
Yeah.
also keep themselves sane, right? So it's more of a referral space and then
Hmm.
attending as many conferences as we can to build credibility. Because remember, there's lack of trust in that behavioral health space because of all the things that they've gone through. So now when you show up the second year in a row and they say, oh, you guys are still here and you've got other customers. So it's more building momentum inside that organization, that market space by signing more accounts, using more cross marketing within those accounts. So that's that piece. And behavior and family law, we're competing against SoberLink. SoberLink's been in the market for 10 years. We're priced to compete against SoberLink and take market share from them and provide a different solution. And in family law, they don't care. I mean, just make sure that it works. They can save their client money and they can do better tracking 24/7 versus 3 times a day when you blow it. So it's product based. And on the consumer side, we have, I don't know the names of these individuals, but we have 4 influencers that each have a following of from individuals affected in the space. In this case, the biggest problem in right now, the biggest issue with drinking on the consumer side, the day-to-day side, is with middle-aged women. So we have 4 influencers that all play a role in that spot, in that space, and they're talking about not selling our technology, but they're talking about our technology and how it may help, and they're educating. So we're educating a certain section of the market because there's subsections within consumer. That's the biggest one right now. And then we also have an incredible individual, Jason Waller. I don't know if you know who he is,
Yeah.
but he's speaking to the consumer and the male population out there that have drinking issues because he himself has had issues drinking, drugs, gambling. I mean, God gave him all. He's got all the vices, and he's been, I think, clean now 5 or 6 years. And he gets up every day and he does what he do. So we have influencers in those spaces that help us build credibility along the technology itself. As you mentioned, that doesn't matter. It's building credibility. How's this going to work for me? How's this going to be discreet? Who else uses it? Does it really work? So it's continuing to build brand, continuing to sign accounts, continue to find the best brand ambassadors that we can to give us as much credibility as we move down the road.
David, just the last question I have, like, what has this journey been like for you? I mean, to build this kind of social impact business that you could really do a lot of good. What has that felt like for you?
There were times when I, felt like, God, why did you pick me to do this?
Hmm.
It's been there's some really, really tough days, but
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I see that the tide is turning. I read the testimonials from people saying, "Thank you so much. Without this has saved our family. This is so." I'm seeing all the positivity that's coming out of it, and I feel that I can see a dim light at the end of the tunnel now from a growth perspective, and I feel that it's all been worth it. But it's been a really tough challenge to get to this point. But I think we're going to make it out the other side, and I think we're going to expand internationally. You just got to keep on going, and we'll have to raise some more money, keep the process going. But I feel really good today. But as any entrepreneur will tell you, when you go to take a shower at night, you've got your bar of soap and your bar of soap for self doubt, and you have those moments. But you just got if you believe that what you have is needed, then you keep going. But things are really going well right now, turning. So I feel really good. But it's been tough.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear things are getting better. Well, David, I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think you're on a really important mission. It's something that needs to get out there even more than it has, and I'm just excited to see how you'll do that. I mean, you've got so much experience behind you. You've got an incredible wealth of knowledge and insights from the different companies you've been behind, and I think you're ready to deploy all of that here and to bring this to so many people that need it. So I'm looking forward to seeing the continued success and the scaling of everything.